Alright, so continuing. As I was saying, mammals, they're warm-blooded, just like birds are, endotherms. They mainly have skin, they have hair covering their skin. It helps insulate them from cold and heat. Um, Hair can protect them from wind and water as well. Other animals, some of them have little to no hair. Usually whales and dolphins have it in their early stages. It's just very fine and hard to see. Um, Wool for sheep, spines, quills, and some horns are modified hair. Many of them for protecting themselves from predators, such as porcupines. Um, Females have mammary glands, which produce milk for their young after they are born, and they usually give birth to live offspring, no eggs. There is one exception to this that we're going to be looking at. They have different structured teeth depending on what type of food they intake. So if the organism is an herbivore, herbivores usually have flattened teeth that are good for grinding plants, as you can see. Carnivores have sharper teeth for tearing into meat, as over here. And if an organism is an omnivore, which means they eat both plants and animals, they have a combination of both the sharper teeth and the teeth that are used for grinding plants. They have well-developed lungs with very tiny sacs that help bring in oxygen and release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. They have very complex nervous systems. Animals are able to learn information and remember a little bit better than most other animals. They usually have a larger brain than most other animals as well. Reproduction is there's usually internal fertilization. The embryo usually develops internally as well in a structure known as the uterus, but that's not for all organisms in this category though. There are three types of mammals that we're going to be looking at. The first are called monotremes. This is a very small group of mammals, and they are the one big exception to the no eggs rule. They lay eggs with tough leathery shells instead of giving live birth. Many of the females incubate the eggs in their own bodies for about 10 days, just incubate the eggs for 10 days. Their young get milk from them just by licking the milk directly from the fur surrounding them, surrounding the mammary gland. And one very good example here is the duck-billed platypus. So as you can see, the duck-billed platypus has many of the characteristics you would assume make it a bird. However, it has fur, not feathers. And as I said, they have mammary glands, which help produce milk for their young once they've hatched. The next category is the marsupial category. Marsupials include koalas, kangaroos, Tasmanian devils, wallabies. Mainly they are found in Australia and New Guinea. Opossums are the only marsupials that live in North America. They carry their young in a pouch, so the embryo does not fully develop in the uterus of the marsupial. They do give birth to the embryo well before it's fully developed. They are born blind, without hair, and not fully formed. They are very tiny at that age when they are born, and they are usually latched onto the mother to get milk and nourishment and begin to grow and develop over time. Then we have the placental mammals. This is the largest group of mammals. They are named placental mammals because of the sac-like organ that develops from the tissue of the embryo and the uterus. And the reason the placenta is so important is because it's how nutrients and oxygen are transported to the embryo and waste products are carried away. The placenta is full of blood vessels. The blood vessels help carry the oxygen and nutrients to the embryo and take away the waste products. However, it's very important to note that the blood of the mother does not mix with the blood of the embryo, and that's because there's something called an umbilical cord there. The umbilical cord has blood vessels which carry the nutrients from the placenta to the embryo and oxygen to them, and pulls away and carries away the waste products such as carbon dioxide from the embryo. This placenta is usually along the uterine wall where the embryo is developing over the course of a certain amount of time. Each organism has a very different gestation period. So in the case of humans, we know it's about 9 months or so. In the case of mice and rats, gestation is only about 21 days. And for an elephant, it's 616 days, which we know is well over 1 year. It's almost a full 2 years, just to give you an idea. Before I get to what you're going to see in the video, I just want to recap. So far, we've talked about fish. We've talked about the fact that fish have scales, they live their life in water, they are ectotherms, and they lay eggs. We talked about amphibians. Amphibians have very moist skin, very thin skin. They have lungs that are developed over the course of their lifetime as they go through metamorphosis from a tadpole stage with no legs and no arms. They start off their lives living mainly in the water and develop into an adult stage that can live on both land and in water. They also lay eggs, and fertilization, just like fish, happens externally. Then there are the lizards. Lizards have more adaptations for living life on land. They have dry, scaly skin. While they do live some of their life in water catching food, such as turtles and crocodiles and alligators, what makes them very different... Oh, and they are also ectotherms. What makes them very different is their ability to lay eggs. The ability to lay eggs gives them much more freedom to live their life on land because the egg protects the embryo as it develops, keeps the embryo moist, and provides food for the embryo without without needing the risk of the egg being in water where it can be attacked by predators. Not saying that there are no other predators of reptile eggs on land, just different set of predators. Then we have birds. Birds are endotherms. They have very different functions where they can help with pollination of plants, seed dispersal. They are food for some animals. Some can fly. Some are unable to fly, such as the ostrich and the penguin. Ostriches are better runners. Penguins are better swimmers. They are adapted for flight because they have hollow bones. They also had feathers which are geared for flight because they help with the uplift of the bird into the air. Feathers are usually also waterproof as well. What keeps them waterproof is how they are arranged. The arrangement of the feathers also helps with their flight. Then we looked at mammals. Mammals usually are covered in some form of hair at some point in their development, and they have mammary glands to feed their young when they are born. Fertilization and development usually happen internally. Remember, the one big exception to this were the monotremes, things like the duck-billed platypus. While they are covered in fur, they do lay eggs, but they do feed their young with milk from their mammary glands. Marsupials, the young are born very early, blind and without hair, and they develop in a pouch, mainly found in Australia and New Guinea, except for the opossum, which is in North America. And then we had the placental mammals, where the placenta carries nutrients and oxygen to the embryo that's developing in the uterus by way of an umbilical cord, and the blood vessels in the umbilical cord are able to carry waste products back to the placenta to be released by the mother. This is a very short video that you are going to be able to take some time to watch on your own. Feel free to join office hours at 1 p.m. for me to answer questions. I am posting a short little worksheet for you to answer questions about these. Tomorrow we are probably going to do a compare and contrast activity for invertebrates and vertebrates so that we can finish up. And then on Thursday we're going to do a little bit of a review for the quarterly, which will be next week. Thank you. Have a very nice day.